The convoy moved through the narrow country road like a dark ribbon against the autumn morning. 3 black Range Rovers, windows tinted, engines humming in perfect formation. Inside the middle vehicle sat Prince William, his eyes on a briefing document, unaware that in less than 2 minutes, everything would change. The Royal Guard driving the lead vehicle was named Marcus Holt, 43 years old, 20 years of service, a man trained to notice what others missed. And that morning, something felt wrong. The route had been planned weeks in advance. Every turn memorized, every exit mapped. This wasn't Marcus's first time escorting royalty through the countryside. Something in his gut twisted as they approached the intersection near Ashwood Bridge. The trees were too quiet, no birds. No movement, then he saw it. A white van. Parked at an odd angle near the bridge entrance, engine running, windows dark. Marcus's hand tightened on the wheel. His eyes scanned the tree line. There, 2 figures, partially hidden. One held something that caught the morning light. Marcus's heart hammered. His training took over. Without warning, he pulled hard left, tires screaming against asphalt. The sudden movement jolted everyone. In the second vehicle, Prince William looked up from his papers, confusion flashing across his face. The third car followed Marcus's lead instantly, all 3 vehicles veering away from the planned route. What's happening? The voice crackled through Marcus's radio. Possible threat. Bridge area. Rerouting now. Behind them, the white van's engine roared to life. Before we continue with what happened next, if you're enjoying this story, consider subscribing so you never miss these incredible, real-life moments that prove truth is stranger than fiction. The alternate route took them through a residential area. Marcus's eyes never stopped moving. Mirrors, side streets, rooftops. His breathing was controlled, but his mind raced. Had he overreacted? Or had he just saved lives? In the middle vehicle, William's protection officer was already on the phone with command. Codes, locations, threat assessments. The prince sat quietly, trusting the people whose job was to keep him breathing. The convoy picked up speed. 50 miles per hour? Then 60. The white van appeared behind them again. Marcus's jaw clenched. Not paranoia, then real. "We have a tail," he reported. White Ford Transit. No plates visible. 2 occupants. The decision was made in seconds. Split the convoy. Confuse the pursuers. Create multiple targets. The third vehicle peeled off at the next junction, speeding toward the local police station. The white van hesitated, then continued following the lead to vehicles. That hesitation told Marcus everything. They knew which car the prince was in. The morning sun cut through the windshield. As they raced through villages that blurred into streaks of stone and color, an elderly woman walking her dog stopped and stared. A postman looked up from his rounds. To them, it was just expensive cars driving too fast. They had no idea they were witnessing a chase. Marcus's radio crackled with updates. Police were mobilizing. Helicopters were being scrambled. But right now, in this moment, 3 people in 2 vehicles were alone on a country road with someone dangerous behind them. The white van was gaining. William's protection. Officer drew his weapon. Not to use. Not yet. But ready. The prince's face remained calm, but his hands had stopped holding the briefing papers. They were pressed flat against his knees, steady, waiting. Marcus saw a service road ahead, narrow, barely visible. A gamble. He took it. The vehicle lurched right, suspension groaning as they left the main road. Gravel sprayed. The second car followed so close, their bumpers nearly kissed. Behind them, the white van braked hard, tires smoking. They'd bought seconds. Maybe a minute. That's all they needed. But as the service road curved through dense woodland, Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. Another vehicle. This one black. Blocking the path ahead, they were trapped between 2 vehicles, and the forest had no way out. Marcus's foot hovered over the brake. Every instinct screamed danger. The black car ahead wasn't moving. Its windows were tinted like theirs. No license plate visible, The white van was somewhere behind, closing the trap. "Options," Williams' protection officer said into the radio. His voice was steady but tight. Marcus scanned the forest on both sides. Trees, too dense. Ditches too deep. The service road was barely wide enough for one vehicle, let alone two trying to turn around. They were committed now. Then the door of the black car ahead opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-50s. Gray, hair pulled back. She wore a reflective safety vest and held up both hands, palms forward. In one hand was a radio. Her face showed confusion, not aggression. "Forestry Service," Marcus breathed. "She's Forestry Service." The tension didn't leave his body. But his foot moved to the accelerator, slowly. The woman stepped aside, waving them through. As they passed, Marcus saw the logo on her vest clearly. Legitimate, real. She was just a forest ranger, wondering why expensive cars were tearing through her work site. Behind them, the white van had stopped at the service road entrance. Not following, just watching. Their holding position, the protection officer reported. Marcus pushed harder on the accelerator. The service road connected to another country lane 3 miles ahead. If they could reach it, they'd have multiple escape routes. But those 3 miles felt like 30. The forest pressed in from both sides. Shadows and light flickered across the windshield. Marcus's hands ached from gripping the wheel. In the back seat, through the rearview mirror, he could see Prince William's face. Calm, almost eerily calm. The man had been trained for this his entire life. Crisis was just another Tuesday. The radio crackled. "Armed response units are 8 minutes out. Helicopter is airborne. We have eyes on your position." 8 minutes. An eternity when someone might be hunting you. The service road finally opened onto the country lane. Marcus didn't slow down. He took the turn fast, the vehicle tilting, suspension screaming. The second car followed perfectly. Professional, synchronized, beautiful in its precision. Direction. The protection officer asked command. "North. Make for the road. We'll have units forming a perimeter." North it was. The lanes became wider. Houses appeared more frequently. Normal life. People going about their morning unaware that royalty was racing past their gardens. Marcus checked his mirrors constantly. No white van. No black car. Had they given up? Or were they regrouping? His phone buzzed. Probably wondering when he'd be home for dinner. He couldn't answer. His hands needed to stay on the wheel. His mind needed to stay sharp. He'd call her later. Tell her about his day. Leave out the parts that would keep her awake at night. The road appeared ahead like salvation. Wide, busy, public. Safety in numbers. As they merged into traffic, police vehicles appeared from 3 directions, forming a protective box around the convoy. Blue lights flashing. Silent, but visible. Prince William's car was moved to the center of the formation. Police motorcycles took positions at the front and rear. What had been a chase was now an escort. Official. Controlled. Safe. In the lead vehicle. His shoulders dropped an inch. His grip on the wheel loosened. The adrenaline that had been flooding his system began to ebb, leaving behind a tremble in his hands. "Good work, Marcus." The voice came through his radio. "Damn good work." He didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. He'd done his job. That was all. But the weight of what might have happened pressed on him like a physical thing. The convoy traveled another 20 miles before pulling into a secure location. A private estate owned by someone with connections to the royal family. High walls, guards, cameras. As the vehicles stopped, doors opened. Prince William stepped out. He looked at Marcus. Made eye contact. Nodded once. A small gesture. Barely noticeable to anyone else. But Marcus felt it in his chest. Recognition. Gratitude. Then the prince was whisked inside by security. Teams who swarmed like protective bees around their queen. Marcus stood by his vehicle, keys still in his hand, and watched the organized chaos. Other officers were already reviewing footage, analyzing routes, making calls. The machine of royal protection was in full operation. A senior officer approached Marcus. "You saw something at the bridge? Tell me exactly what you saw." Marcus described it all. The van, the figures, the angle of the parking, the pursuit, his instincts. The officer listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, the man's expression was grave. "The bomb squad is at the bridge now," he said quietly. "They found something under the roadway, right where you would have driven over it." The world seemed to tilt slightly. Marcus's mouth went dry. Marcus felt his knees weaken. He leaned against the Range Rover, the metal cool against his palm. A bomb, an actual bomb. Under the bridge, right where they would have crossed. "How bad?" he managed to ask. The senior officer's jaw tightened. "Bad enough?" "Military grade. Remote detonated. If you'd crossed that bridge," he didn't finish. "Didn't need to." Marcus thought about his morning. Getting dressed in the dark while his wife slept. Kissing his daughter's forehead before leaving. The normalcy of it all. He'd thought today would be routine. Another protection detail. Another safe delivery. The white van, Marcus asked. Disappeared. But we have descriptions. Cameras caught partial plates. We're running everything now. The officer placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You trusted your gut. That's why you're here. That's why he's alive." Inside the estate, Prince William sat in a drawing room that smelled of old books and furniture polish. His protection officer stood nearby, phone pressed to his ear. Speaking in the clipped tones of someone delivering a crisis report, William's hands were steady as he poured himself water from a crystal decanter, but his mind was racing. Someone had tried to kill him. Not theoretically. Not as an abstract threat in a briefing document. Really tried. With explosives and planning and intent. He thought about Kate, about his children, about how close he'd come to never seeing them again. The door opened. A woman in a dark suit entered. MI5. Her face was serious, but not unkind. "Your Royal Highness, we need to discuss what happens next." What happened next was a lockdown. Not public. Not announced. But real. William's schedule was cleared for 48 hours. His family was moved to a secure location. Guards were doubled. Routes were changed. The investigation began in earnest. Marcus was taken to a facility in London. Not under arrest, but needed. They wanted every detail. Every observation. They sat him in a room with tea he didn't drink and asked him questions for 3 hours. "Why did you divert?" One investigator asked. The van was wrong. The angle, the timing, the location, but you didn't see a weapon. No, you didn't receive a specific threat. No. So you made a decision based on feeling. Marcus met the investigator's eyes. "I made a decision based on 20 years of training and instinct. That's what you pay me for." The investigator nodded slowly, wrote something down. "You were right. You know, that changes things. Did change things. If Marcus had been wrong, if there had been no bomb, his career might have ended. Accused of being paranoid, of overreacting, of creating an incident where none existed. But he'd been right. And being right meant he'd save lives." The investigation moved fast. The white van was found abandoned in an industrial estate 40 miles away. Burned out. Forensics teams descended on it like archaeologists at a dig site. Every fiber, every fingerprint, every molecule of the bridge bomb was carefully dismantled. The components were traced. Military grade meant military sources. Someone with access. Someone with training. This wasn't amateurs. 3 days after the incident, arrests were made. Not publicly announced. No press release, but made nonetheless. Both with military backgrounds, both with connections to extremist groups, both now in custody. The interrogations revealed a plot that made even seasoned investigators sick. The bridge was Plan A. The white van was Plan B, ready to force the convoy into the trap if they deviated. There was even a Plan C involving the Forest Service road, but they'd never expected the convoy to move that fast or that unpredictably. Marcus's instinct and immediate action had broken their timeline, created chaos in their careful planning. Given authorities time to respond, saved lives. But knowing all this didn't make Marcus sleep better. He lay awake at night thinking about parallel universes, timelines where he'd hesitated, where he'd second-guessed himself, where he'd crossed that bridge. His wife held him in the darkness. "You did good," she whispered. "I got lucky," he replied. "No, you were good. There's a difference." A week later, Marcus returned to duty. Different routes now, different protocols, but same job, same purpose: protect and serve. He pulled up to the palace for a briefing. As he walked through the security checkpoints, A8 approached. "The prince wants to see you." Akko's stomach flipped. He'd nodded at William that day, received that single gesture of acknowledgement. He'd thought that was it. That was all he'd get. But now this. He was led through corridors he'd never seen, past paintings worth millions, past history preserved in marble and gold, to a private office where Prince William stood looking out a window. "Your Royal Highness," Marcus said, standing at attention. William turned. Up close, without the tinted windows in crisis, he looked younger, tired, human. "Sit, please," William said. Marcus sat. This wasn't protocol. This was personal. William sat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then William leaned forward slightly. "They told me what you saw, what you noticed, how fast you reacted." He paused. "They also told me that if you'd waited even 10 seconds longer to make that decision, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Marcus didn't know what to say. "I was doing my job, sir." "No," William said gently. "You did more than your job. You trusted yourself in a moment when most people would have doubted." The office felt smaller than it was, more intimate. Marcus could hear the clock on the wall ticking, could see the photos on William's desk. His family, his children, the people who would have grown up without a father if Marcus had hesitated. "I have 3 kids," William said, following Marcus's gaze. "George, Charlotte, Louis. They're everything." His voice caught slightly. They would have asked where Daddy was. Kate would have had to explain. And somewhere down the line, they would have learned the truth, that someone murdered their father on a country road. Marcus felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. This wasn't about duty or protocol anymore. This was about a father who wanted to see his children grow up. "My daughter is 7, Marcus said quietly. "Emma. She wants to be a veterinarian." William smiled. "Small, but genuine. They give us something to fight for, don't they? Something to come home to?" "Yes, sir." William stood and walked to his desk. He picked up a small box. "This isn't official. There will be official recognition later, ceremonies, paperwork. But this is from me, person to person." He handed Marcus the box. Inside was a medal. Not military. Not standard issue. Personal. "It was my grandfather's," William said. "He gave it to someone who saved his life during the war. That person passed, and it came back to the family. I want you to have it." Marcus's hands trembled as he held the box. "Sir, I can't accept this." "You can. You will. Because every time you look at it, I want you to remember that trusting yourself matters. That instinct matters. That you made a difference." There were no photographers. No press. Just 2 men in a quiet room, acknowledging a moment that would never make headlines but would echo through lifetimes. Marcus left the palace with the medal in his pocket and tears he wouldn't let fall until he reached his car. He sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel like always, and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back: relief, fear, pride, gratitude. Then he drove home. His daughter ran to meet him at the door like she always did. "Daddy!" She wrapped her arms around his legs. "Did you have a good day?" He picked her up, held her close. "Yeah, sweetheart. I had a good day." His wife watched from the kitchen doorway. She knew something had changed, could see it in his eyes. Later, when Emma was asleep, He'd tell her everything. Show her the medal. Let her hold the weight of it. But right now, this moment was about normal. About home. About the life he'd protected without even knowing it. The investigation continued for months. The two arrested men were tried in closed court sessions. Details were kept from the public. The official story was that enhanced security. Protocols had prevented a potential threat. Vague, bureaucratic, safe. But among protection officers, the story spread. Marcus became a legend in the quiet way that people who do extraordinary things without seeking attention become legends. New recruits heard about the guard who trusted his gut, who saw what others missed. Who saved a prince? Marcus didn't want the attention. Didn't want to be a legend. He wanted to do his job and go home to his family. But something had shifted in him. He'd looked into the face of what might have been and survived. That changes a person. He trained harder, observed more carefully, but he also laughed easier, hugged longer, understood that every morning with his family was a gift. 6 months after the incident, Marcus was promoted. Not because of what happened officially, but everyone knew. He was given responsibilities, training new protection officers, teaching them what can't be taught in manuals. Instinct, observation, trust. He'd stand in front of classes and tell them about that morning, the white van, the figures in the trees, the decision he made in seconds that saved lives. You'll have moments, he'd say, where everything you know tells you something is wrong. But you'll doubt yourself because you don't have proof. You don't have evidence. You just have feeling. He'd pause. Let that sink in. Trust the feeling. Every time, one young officer raised her hand. But what if you're wrong? What if there's no threat? Marcus met her eyes. Then you're wrong. You face the consequences. You accept the criticism, but you're alive to face it. They're alive, and you can live with being wrong. You can't live with being right and doing nothing. The class would go silent, understanding settling into their bones. Prince William returned to public duties. He visited hospitals and schools. He gave speeches and attended ceremonies. The world saw him smile and wave. They didn't know how close they'd come to mourning him. Didn't know about the bomb under the bridge or the guard who noticed shadows in trees. But William knew. Every time he got into a vehicle, he thought about Marcus. Every time he crossed a bridge, he remembered. The weight of being a target never left. But neither did the gratitude. On the anniversary of the incident, Marcus received a handwritten letter. The royal seal on the envelope. Inside, William's words, "Marcus, a year ago, you made a decision that changed everything. You gave me more birthdays, more Christmases, more ordinary Tuesdays with the people I love. There's no way to properly thank someone for that. But I want you to know that I think about it. About you. About the fact that good people doing their jobs with integrity and courage is what keeps this world functioning. You represent the best of what service means. Thank you, always, William." Marcus read it 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his wallet, next to a photo of Emma, right where it belonged. 2 years passed. The world kept spinning. News cycles moved on to other stories, other crises. But for Marcus, that autumn morning remained as vivid as yesterday. He was at the training facility when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Marcus Holt. The voice was professional, clipped, military. Speaking. "This is Commander Pierce, Special Operations. We have a situation. We need your expertise." 20 minutes later, Marcus was in a briefing room surrounded by people he'd never met but recognized by type. Intelligence officers, tactical specialists, people who lived in shadows and spoke in code. On the screen at the front of the room was a face, young, Middle Eastern features. Name redacted. But the eyes held something familiar: anger, purpose, ideology. "This individual," Commander Pierce said, "is planning an attack. We have intelligence suggesting targets include government buildings and public figures. We've been tracking his network for 8 months." Marcus studied the face. "What do you need from me?" You stopped an attack through observation and instinct. We need you to train a team. Teach them to see what you saw. We have 3 weeks. 3 weeks to transfer 20 years of experience. 3 weeks to teach intuition. It seemed impossible, but Marcus said yes. The team was 12 people. 6 men. 6 women. Ages ranging from 25 to 48. All skilled. All trained. But none had faced what Marcus had faced. None had that moment where instinct overrode procedure and saved lives. He started with the basics. Protection isn't about reacting to threats. It's about preventing them from materializing. You're not a shield. You're a scanner. Your job is to read environments. They practiced in urban settings. Marcus would plant anomalies. A bag in the wrong place. A person watching too carefully. A vehicle parked at an odd angle. The team had to spot them. Had to articulate why something felt wrong. At first, they missed things. Walked past dangers. Focused on obvious threats and ignored subtle ones. Again, Marcus would say, patient but firm. The bomber doesn't look like a bomber. The threat doesn't announce itself. You're looking for what doesn't belong. Slowly, they improved. Started noticing. Started trusting their observations. One officer, a woman named Sarah with sharp eyes and quick reflexes, approached Marcus after a session. "How do you turn off the paranoia?" she asked. "I'm starting to see threats everywhere. My husband thinks I'm losing it." Marcus understood. He'd been there. You don't turn it off. You calibrate it. You learn the difference between caution and paranoia, and you accept that sometimes you'll be wrong. But better wrong and safe than right and dead. The 3 weeks became a blur. 12-hour days. Scenarios, debriefs. Marcus shared everything. The white van. The trees. The moment of decision, he held nothing back. On the final day, Commander Pierce pulled Marcus aside. The target moved up his timeline. He's active. Tomorrow. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Where? London. Public event. Thousands of people. We have units positioned, but we need your team ready. The next morning, Marcus stood with his team in a control room filled with monitors. The event was a charity marathon. Runners, spectators, families, Prince William, scheduled to present awards at the finish line. "He's here somewhere," Commander Pierce said, pointing to the screens. "We know he's here. We just don't know where." The team split up. 6 in the field with earpieces. 6 in the control room watching feeds. Marcus stayed at the monitors, his eyes moving across camera angles, looking for the thing that didn't fit. The marathon was chaos. Organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Thousands of people. Movement, colors, noise. Then Sarah's voice came through. "North entrance. White delivery van. Driver's not making deliveries." "He's watching." Marcus switched to that camera, zoomed in. The driver was young, nervous, hands gripping the wheel too tight. "Could be nothing," another officer said. "Could be everything," Marcus replied. "Sarah, get closer. Don't spook him. Just observe." Sarah moved through the crowd naturally. Just another spectator. She circled to get a better angle on the van. Then her voice crackled through again. "Back of the van. There's welding marks. Fresh like reinforcement." Reinforcement meant payload. Payload meant bomb. Get units there. Now, evacuate quietly. Don't create panic. Everything happened fast and slow simultaneously. Police officers moved in plain clothes. The van driver noticed. Started the engine. Sarah moved to block the exit. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The driver's hand moved toward something in his lap. Sarah's hand moved toward her concealed weapon. The crowd pressed close, unaware. Then tactical units appeared, shouting orders. The driver's hands went up, empty. Whatever he'd been reaching for stayed in his lap. The van was cleared. The crowd was moved. The threat was neutralized. Marcus watched it all from the control room. his heart hammering against his ribs. Prince William's appearance was delayed with a vague excuse about scheduling. The awards ceremony moved to a different location. The public never knew how close they'd come to tragedy. In the back of the van, bomb squad officers found 40 kilograms of explosives, enough to level a city block. Enough to kill hundreds. Commander Pierce looked at Marcus. Your team just saved lives. Sarah saw what you taught her to see. That night, Marcus called Sarah. You did good today. I was terrified, she admitted.
God means you're human.
But you didn't let fear stop you from acting. That's what matters. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his kitchen. His wife was already asleep. Emma's school artwork covered the refrigerator. Normal life. But Marcus now understood something profound. Normal life only existed because people were willing to stand between chaos and innocence. 5 years after that autumn morning on the country road, Marcus stood in a cemetery, not for a funeral. For remembrance, a memorial service for fallen protection officers. Men and women who'd given everything. He read the names on the memorial wall. People he'd known. People he'd trained. People who'd made different decisions in different moments and paid the ultimate price. One name stopped him cold. David Brennan, 29 years old. Killed protecting a diplomat in an ambush? The attack had happened 3 years ago, but Marcus remembered hearing about it. Remembered the hollow feeling in his chest. David had been in one of his training classes. Eager, capable. He'd learned everything Marcus taught. But sometimes learning isn't enough. Sometimes the threats are too many, the odds too long. Marcus placed his hand on David's name. I'm sorry, he whispered. A voice behind him said, he spoke about you often.
Oh.
Marcus turned. A woman in her 50s. David's mother. She held flowers. Said you taught him to trust his instincts, she continued. Said you made him better at his job. Tears filled her eyes. He died doing what he loved. Protecting someone? That has to count for something. Marcus didn't have words. What do you say to a mother who lost her son? That his sacrifice mattered? That his death served a purpose? It all felt inadequate. He saved 3 people that day, the woman said. The diplomat. The driver. Another officer. David saw the threat and put himself between the bullet and them. She wiped her eyes. You taught him that. To see, to act, to sacrifice. After she left, Marcus stood alone among the memorials. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. Every officer he trained might face what David faced. Might have to make that choice. Live or let others die. But that was the job. That was always the job. His phone buzzed. A text from William. After 5 years, they'd maintained an occasional correspondence. Not friendship exactly, but connection. Mutual respect, the text read, attending the memorial service later. Will you be there? Marcus replied, yes. That evening, in a grand hall with chandeliers and history, Marcus stood among hundreds of people gathered to honor fallen officers. Politicians gave speeches. Families shared stories. Tears fell. When Prince William spoke, the room fell silent. We live, William said, in a world where evil exists, where people plot harm against innocence, where hatred motivates action. But we also live in a world where people like those we honor tonight stand between evil and us. They see threats we don't see. They act when we would freeze. They sacrifice their safety for ours. His eyes found Marcus in the crowd. Brief contact. Recognition. 5 years ago, William continued, someone saved my life. Not through violence. Not through dramatic heroics. But through observation. Through trusting instinct. Through doing the job with integrity. He didn't mention Marcus by name. Didn't need to. That person taught others. And those others have saved more lives. And the cycle continues. One good act, multiplying into countless good acts. After the ceremony, Marcus found himself face to face with William again. I meant what I said, William told him. You started something, a legacy. I just did my job, sir, William smiled. You keep saying that. After all these years, still humble, still seeing yourself as just another officer? He shook his head. But you're not. You're the officer others aspire to be, the standard they measure themselves against. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the praise. He'd lost officers he trained, had attended their funerals, had faced their families. How could he be a standard when people still died? William seemed to read his thoughts. You can't save everyone, Marcus. No one can. But you save who you can, and you teach others to do the same. That's legacy. That's meaning. Later, driving home through London streets, Marcus thought about legacy. About David Brennan and the 3 people he saved. About Sarah and the marathon bombing she prevented. About every officer he'd trained who'd gone on to make a difference. Maybe William was right. Maybe it wasn't about saving everyone. Maybe it was about creating a chain of capable, observant, courageous people who stood in the gap. When he got home, Emma was still awake. 12 years old now, growing up fast. She was at the kitchen table, homework spread out, struggling with a math problem. "Dad," she said, "how do you know when you're doing something important?" Marcus sat beside her, looked at the equations she couldn't solve, thought about the question beneath the question. "You don't always know," he said. "Sometimes you do something that seems small, just part of your normal day, and later you find out it mattered more than you realized." He helped her work through the math. "The key is to do everything with care, to pay attention, to try your best even when no one's watching." She nodded, solving the problem with his guidance. "Is that what you do at work?" "Yeah, sweetheart. That's exactly what I do." After she went to bed, Marcus sat with his wife on the couch. She leaned against him, comfortable, safe. "Long day?" she asked. "Yeah. You thinking about that morning? The bridge?" He was always thinking about the bridge. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been wrong, if there had been no bomb, if I'd diverted the convoy for nothing, but you weren't wrong, but I could have been. And that would have ended my career. Made me a cautionary tale instead of an example." She sat up, looked at him directly. "You made the best decision you could with the information you had. That's all anyone can do. The outcome doesn't change the quality of the decision. It was a good decision because you were thoughtful and trained and careful. The bomb just proved it." Marcus kissed her forehead. "When did you get so wise?" "I married a man who saves lives." Had to level up. They sat in the quiet of their home. Their daughter's safe upstairs. The world outside spinning with threats they'd never see, but also with protectors they'd never thank. Marcus thought about the officers he'd trained now spread across the country. In motorcades, at embassies, walking routes, watching crowds. Each one carrying forward what he'd taught them. Each one a link in a chain that stretched beyond him. He thought about Prince William, about the children who still had their father, about the thousands of people at the marathon who went home to their families because Sarah trusted her training, and he thought about David Brennan, about sacrifice, about the price some pay so others don't have to. The weight of it all should have crushed him, but somehow it didn't, because alongside the weight was purpose, meaning the knowledge that what he did mattered. His phone buzzed. A message from one of his trainees. Spotted suspicious package at station. Evacuated. Turned out to be nothing. But better safe than sorry. Thanks for the training. Smiled. Better safe than sorry. That was the whole job summed up. He turned off his phone, held his wife close, and for that night allowed himself to just be a man at home with the person he loved. Tomorrow, he'd be back on duty. Back to scanning for threats. Back to teaching others to see what most miss. But tonight, he was just Marcus. Husband, father, man. And that was enough.